Greetings and welcome to Senior English A in room 303. We are working with the Sonnets of William Shakespeare, the great playwright and poet of the Elizabethan era. And we are now on page 276. And we will be looking at what many people believe to be Shakespeare's most famous sonnet, the famous Sonnet 116 as it's often referred to. In Senior English A, for example, this is a poem that you will be asked to recite from memory. You'll be asked to memorize it and to recite it, often in class. And so it makes sense for us maybe to do a quick line-by-line study of this poem. I want to begin right away, however, at 2A. And I'm going to go ahead, spoiler alert coming here, I'm going to go ahead and have you write this one down. This poem is often considered the greatest poem, single poem by Shakespeare in terms of how he defines true love. True love. Okay? The idea borrowed heavily from the Greek mythology, especially presented in Plato's Symposium. I would write that down at 3A, comparison to other titles. Plato's Symposium, that suggests that when one was born and one's soul was conceived, that soul was a perfect sphere, like a basketball, and it was severed in half at birth. Half of your soul goes into you, half of your soul goes into another person, and then you spend the rest of your life trying to find that other person, your, what we call, soul mate. Now, that idea is a very old idea. Shakespeare's going to pick up that game and play it again now in Sonnet 116. Let's take a look at this poem, first of all, in just its reading, and then we'll exegete quickly each of the lines. Sonnet 116. Just read along with me. Again, hey, can I say this to you one more time? I am really happy that you're here studying Shakespeare with me now. And of course, we're going to do enough in our conversation so that you know what this poem is about. No question. But that's not really why you're here with me right now. I'm trying to help you become a better reader. The way I do that is by challenging you to actually read along with me. Don't just let me read it to you and for you and tell you what it says, but rather imagine yourself after high school in a situation where you have to read something for yourself and understand it, and you have nobody there to help you. How will you do that? That's a good question. That's a good question. So what I'm suggesting is, let's use, for example, Sonnet 116 as a classic example, where I read it for the first time and I maybe have no idea what's there. And then I go back and I start working through it and I got some plan, annotation, right, of how I can actually figure out what's being said. Read it with me. Allow your eyes to follow the words and see how much you understand of it on your own without any of my help. And then let's work through it with our annotation. Sonnet 116. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no! It is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error and upon me proved, I never read, nor no man ever loved. Now, for those of you that say, dude, you could have stood up in front of me right now and just kind of gone, that's about how much I got from that poem. Let's begin the process of annotation and see if we can't help ourselves out. Let's start at 2B. Let's start at 2B. Let's remind ourselves, first of all, let's write it down. This is a sonnet. That is to say, 3 things absolutely for sure we can predict. 1, 14 lines. 2, gotta have rhyme scheme. What is that rhyme scheme for Shakespeare? A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, G, G. Go ahead, look at the poem really quickly and see. Does the last word of the first line rhyme with the last word of the third line? Does the last word of the second line rhyme with the last word of the fourth line? A, B. Those first 4 lines, remember, just for your notes for the exam, quatrain. Qua meaning 4, right? Okay. Notice A, B, C, D, a second quatrain. Right? E, F, a third quatrain, and then finally the rhymed couplet, if this be errand upon me proved, I never written or no man ever loved, G. Okay? So we are looking for sure at a sonnet in terms of rhyme scheme. Wait. What's the third one? If the first one is 14 lines and the second one is a rhyme scheme of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the third one is what? iambic pentameter. Remember our understanding. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. So let's take a look at the poem really quickly and ask if in fact that happens. Let's look at line 7, shall we? I mean, we can look at any line, but let's just look at line 7. It is the star to every wandering bark. It is the star to every wandering bark. Now that's one way to say it, but if I slow it down and emphasize the rhythm, scansion. It is the star to every wandering bark. It is the star to every wandering bark. You see it? It is the star to every wandering bark. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ nor no man ever loved. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. Now, again, if you have to write, as many of you will, an Elizabethan Shakespearean sonnet, and you've got to get that iambic pentameter, then that's the game that you've got to play. That 5 iambic feet. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. So we obviously are looking at a sonnet here, right? Okay. So now let's go back at level 1, and let's try and exegete really quickly and ask what it is that he is actually saying. Notice he begins by saying, let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Now, if you are driving along and you're pulled over by the cop and the cop says, I need you to impede your speed, what does that mean? Impediment, impede, slow down, stop. So let's put it in our notes at level 1 really quickly, and he says it this way. Let me not to the marriage, the joining together of true minds admit impediments. In other words, he says right from the start, I don't want to argue that there is no such thing as true love, the marriage of true minds coming together. By the way, did you put it in your notes and notice it isn't the marriage of true bodies, it's the marriage of true minds. In other words, Shakespeare is going to argue there's the love that you can have of the body, and there's the love that you can have of the mind. And mind love is different from body love, because body love is going to witness the decay of the body. In other words, we're going to get old. And then everything, as we say in 303, everything what? Sags and bags, right? That's what we said before, okay? If, however, you are in love with the mind, that is a different project. Notice he will continue, right? Love is not love. So here it comes. He's going to define what love is by telling you what love is not. Let's go there. Love is not love, which alters, changes, when it alteration finds, or bends with a remover to remove. Are you familiar in the halls of any high school? Some guy, oh, I'm totally in love with her. 3 days later, oh, I totally hate her guts. Whoa, whoa, whoa. 3 days ago, you were totally in love with her. Not anymore. Whoa. Shakespeare says, that ain't love. That ain't love. Love alters not, changes not, when it alteration finds. Just because a person changes, especially we might think of physical change, right? Doesn't change the way that that person falls in love and stays in love with that person, right? So this idea is that if you love the mind, you will, of another person, you will forever love the mind of that other person. This is what we will call ultimate love. You might write it down as that, ultimate love. Notice he says it. Oh no, he says. And now he's talking about true love. The antecedent to the pronoun it at line 5 is true love. It is an ever, do you see that little accent above the E there, by the way? Do you see that accent above the E at line 5? It's so that we will say not fixed mark, but fixed mark. And that fixed gets us our iambic pentameter, right? It's an ever fixed mark. Now, let's go ahead and put it in our notes really quickly at 2b. We are working here with a powerful symbol. If you don't understand the symbol, you're not going to understand the lines. In Shakespeare's day, ships go out onto the ocean. And those ships on the ocean will have to navigate how? Well, very regularly, they have to look up at the stars in the sky, right? What is the one star in the sky which does not move? We, of course, refer to it as the what? The North Star. Let's write that down. The North Star is the way that ships navigate. Okay? Now, Shakespeare's going to play an interesting game with us, and he's going to talk about true love. And he's going to say, let me tell you something about true love. Look at it again. True love is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests, storms, and is never shaken. It is the star to every wondering, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Whoa, 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 did you go back and look at it again? It is the star to every wandering bark. 3 definitions, however, of bark. Let's make sure we have them in our notes. Obviously, bark of a tree, like Ruthie's tree outside our window. Yeah, right? That's bark. Of course, that disgusting sound I just made, that's also a bark. Bark of a dog. There's a 3rd definition, though, of the word bark. Let's write it down. It is a ship. In other words, Shakespeare is making a very interesting point. He says it the following way. In the middle of the storm, when the ship is ready to go down, how does it know how to sail back into harbor? The answer is, it looks up. The people on the ship look up. What do you mean, look up? How can you navigate by looking up? You find the one thing that does not move, the North Star. And by finding the North Star, you then can navigate back home. Whoa, let's listen at 2:8 of what he is saying. You know, you have a real love relationship if in the middle of the storm, you rely on that love to get you through. Now, that is an interesting argument. It says the way you know if the relationship you're in is true love is not when it's going well. Oh, so amazing. We're so happy all the time. Shakespeare goes, that's no test for love. Absolutely no test for love. Why? Because you could feel that way simply because the person you're with is physically stunning. But what happens when things go sideways? When things aren't right? When there's challenges? When there's struggle? When you're in the storm? Of course, let's be fair. Can we say it out loud? Most relationships end then. Do you agree with me? I mean, most relationships don't end when everything is going great. Oh, we're so happy. This is so awesome. Let's break up. Let's get a divorce. No. When does this happen? When does divorce and breakup happen within any number of types of marriages? Marriages of friendships or marriages of actual marriage. When does it happen most of the time? Of course, when things go sideways, in the middle of the storm. Shakespeare says, do you see it? Oh, no, he says. It is an ever-fixed mark. Go back and look at it again with me. It is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, ship, lost ship. Whose words, now look at these lines, they're fascinating. I've had seniors that say, this is one of the coolest poems I've ever read. Whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Can we say it this way? You don't know how valuable the North Star is until you're in the middle of the ocean with 35-foot waves around you and your little boat is ready to sink, and then you look up and find the North Star and know how to navigate. Then you know the value of the star. Only then. Can we say it this way? You take it, the star. You take it for granted when you don't need it. You only understand the value of the North Star when you're in survivor mode. Can we say it that way? You only understand the value of that star when you have to use it to be able to get yourself home or you will die. That's when you appreciate that star, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love, Shakespeare will argue, is exactly the same way. You don't really understand the power of a true friend until you're in the middle of the poop. That's when you find out who your true friends are. Not when you're feeling happy and everything is great. No. That's easy. You'll know who you can truly trust. You'll know who you truly love when you're in the middle of the worst of imaginable situations. And then you survive. And why do you survive? Because of love. That's the reason you survive. Look at the next lines. Love's not time's fool. Now let's write this down. We got another word picture coming, so let's make sure we understand it. Another word picture coming. This word picture is the following. When you think about the grim reaper or death or Father Time, how is he usually pictured? 2 things, right? 1, dressed all in what color? Black, correct? Usually has the hood, right? And then think about as well what he always has in his hand. That sickle, that sickle's compass, that scythe, right? And that scythe is pictured as he's out cutting the grain. In the old days, see, they cut grain without a machine. They cut it by hand, right? And so the word picture is simply this. You are nothing more than a blade of grain, of grass. You grow for a little time, and then along comes the grim reaper, death, father time, and cuts you, and that's the end of it. That sickle is then going to represent something, the end. The simple truth is, you don't live very long. The more simple truth is, no matter how beautiful you are, you don't stay beautiful for very long, right? Notice what he says. Love's not time's fool. In other words, love doesn't go away as the person you love changes physically. Oh, she used to be stunningly beautiful when I married her, but now she kind of got butt ugly because she had a couple of kids, so I'm going to go and find somebody else. No. Shakespeare says that's not love. That's not love. If you fall in love with somebody's body, you are going to fall out of love with that someone. Why? Because the body is time's fool. The body is time's fool. But notice what he says. Love is not time's fool. Though rosy lips, beautiful lips, and cheeks, beautiful face, within his bending sickle's compass come. In other words, Father Time, inevitably, no matter how many surgeries, no matter how many buns of steel videos one does, sooner or later, everything sags and bags. If you live long enough, it doesn't matter how stunningly beautiful you are. Time catches up, and people look at you and go, ugh, yeah, no, not interested. This happens. And yet, what about love? Doesn't change. Look at what he says next. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. Whoa, what did you just read? It says the following. If you fall in love with the mind does not age. The body ages. The mind does not age. And as the body ages, you will remain in love if you fall in love with the mind, as opposed to falling in love with the body. Now you can imagine that at this point, one or two readers of this poem is going, yeah, that kind of thing doesn't exist. That kind of love doesn't exist. I appreciate what you're saying. It's an idealized form of love. That is to say, yeah, love is like the North Star. It gets you through terrible times. People who are truly in love get through terrible times. That doesn't actually exist. Notice Shakespeare's final two lines are a little bit ironic. If this argument I've been making about true love, if this be error, if I'm wrong, and upon me proved, he says, I could be wrong about this. But look at his final line. I never writ, nor no man ever loved. Now wait a minute, what's he just said? I could be wrong about what I just said about true love, but then I would have had to have never written anything. And I would have had to say, I've never been in love. Both of which, of course, we understand are untrue. We know he wrote something, we're reading it. More particularly, his girl is reading it that he's giving this to, if that's, in fact, who he's giving it to. Right? That is to say, I am telling you, I understand what true love is. And what is true love? True love is the marriage of true minds, not bodies. All right, let's jump to it really quickly. 2A, messages, themes. Jot down at least what for you. Hopefully you can do it now. Some of you will say, okay. Now that we've read it and we've annotated it, I kind of got, at level 1, I kind of got a little bit better understanding what this poem is about. So summarize it for yourself at level 2A. What for you is the penultimate line that's going to reduce this poem down to one line? Is it going to be, this is a poem about how true love really does last? And therefore, if the relationship that you're in does not last, we'll ask this at 3B here in a moment, why didn't it last, the last true relationship that you thought was true love? Why didn't it last? Is Shakespeare onto something here? Okay. Of course, we could jot down a couple of notes really quickly at 2A that seem to suggest what the actual messages of this poem might be. 1, love is a matter of mind, not body. Let's write that one down. Love is a matter of mind, not body. Love is about mind, the marriage, the joining of true minds, not body. Okay? Love, a second message. Love is in no way tied to time or the aging process. Let's write that down. Love is in no way related to time or the aging process. You can't measure time through the aging process. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Okay? A third message. True love is only going to be evidenced in the tempest, in the storm, when things go bad. That's when you know if you're in a real relationship or not. Not when everything is going great, but rather when things are going really crummy. Do you find a way to work it out, or does it split you up? If it splits you up, not true love. If you can find a way to work through it, that's true love. But now one other observation. Are you ready for this? The only way you work it out in the middle of a terrible moment is when you are in love with the person's mind and not the person's body. That's an interesting insight. All right? That's an interesting insight. If you are in love with the person's body, you will grow tired of that person's body over time, Shakespeare says, or suggests. If you are in love with that person's mind, the mind doesn't age in the same way. It is forever in some ways new. Or as Keats will say it in Ode to a Grecian Urn, forever young, the mind. But the body obviously will age. All right, let's jump to 2b really quickly. We obviously have made some observation about this being a sonnet, but let's jot this one down really quickly. What is for you the most powerful symbol of this poem? Some students say it's that picture of the little tiny bark or boat out in the middle of the storm, and then the pilot looking up at the star to know how to navigate. They like that image of the North Star. Some students like that picture of the Grim Reaper and that scythe, that sickle that is ready to cut, and they say, bride,